About 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to visit NVIDIA's headquarters in California, and there I was able to meet our next speaker, Mr. Stewart. Louis Stewart is the head of strategic initiative for NVIDIA's global development ecosystem. He's a former professional basketball player turned public servant and now a tech leader, industry leader. He spent his career building bridges between government, academia, and industry. From his early years growing up abroad to his tenure as Sacramento's first Chief Innovation Officer, and his current work expanding access to advanced computing, Louis embodies the belief that leadership began with service. I've asked Mr. Stewart to come and talk for a few minutes to share his expertise on how emerging technologies, especially artificial intelligence, are reshaping the global talent landscape and creating new opportunities for regions like ours. After his talk, he and I will spend a few minutes having a conversation together, and then we will open up for questions. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Louis Stewart.
The reason I'm laughing is because Dr. Harris just surprised the heck out of me. I thought we were just sitting down and talking. So, so it's a pleasure to be here. It's actually been, I won't say a pleasant surprise, but it's always nice walking into a community and seeing the connectedness and seeing the will that folks have to change what's happening next. So. Well, yes, I work for NVIDIA, been there for 5 years, 13 years in the public sector, and yes, before that I may have played a game or two of basketball. Somebody said that they met me, Sandeep met me on a screen, a 2-inch screen, and he realized today that I actually have really long legs. So it's fantastic. I'm going to pivot a little bit because I heard some stuff that the Lieutenant Governor said this morning, and I think it's important for you all to hear that. And at NVIDIA, we don't necessarily build data centers. Our chips go into those data centers. So for America, for your state to protect the workforce in the interest of national security, you have to build up a workforce that's strong and effective. That starts with energy. Jensen, our CEO, will tell us that we have to go find electrons. So if you guys have 6 nuclear facilities coming online, those are actually going to be really good for your economy with data centers moving forward. If you are training in the trades, you're going to need new electricians that know how to work in those data centers. You're going to need new HVAC techs that don't just do traditional HVAC, but know how to cool the systems. So most tech companies won't talk to you about that, but at NVIDIA we actually look at the entire pipeline because without all the workers of all types, the AI economy really doesn't work. We, like I said, don't build the data centers, we design the chips. But when you have workforce needs like we do in the States, whether it be building the chips down in Arizona, doing the R&D in Oregon and the Bay Area or wherever, we actually have to make sure that we build the pipeline of workers that lead into that to help fuel the future economy in the U.S. And so that is kind of the basis of what I do. A lot of what I do is around access and opportunity, but also making sure that folks don't get left behind because of the innovation that we're driving with the chips that we design. And so when Dr. Harris says that my whole career has been based around service, that really is what it's about. Who am I serving, and will it scale? That's the kind of infrastructure building that I do. I don't start with compute first, I start with people first. If I look around the room and I can't have an impact on people's success, it's probably not something that I should be doing. And because I need to be able to leave a legacy beyond me, on stuff that continues beyond what I can do, beyond what NVIDIA does, and that's really how I work. So for the future of workforce, talk about K-12 education. Yes, you need to start talking to children before middle school about jobs. You really need to be starting to talk to children about jobs in the 3rd grade, is what I hear from educators. But teaching them about AI in pre-K. You need to be teaching about the ethics and uses and how things actually work, so that when they get to 3rd grade, when they get to middle school, when they get to high school, they're actually familiar with some of the terminology and language that's going to be being used by industry folks who are looking for the next pipeline of talent. So whether they graduate out of high school and go straight to work, or whether they continue on to get a degree, you have a workforce that actually is informing the next South Carolina, the next Upstate. And that's crucial to any kind of workforce and economic development message that's out there. My background is ecosystem building at the core. So working in a state like California for 7 years in economic development, I got to see amazing innovation. And what happened with learning the infrastructure and the politics and all that stuff working for a governor is I actually saw communities getting left out. I saw walking into rooms folks that didn't necessarily look like me in that room. And when I would go back to the community, they would look at me like I was crazy and I was talking about something in science fiction, but I'd actually seen it. I had seen the first exoskeleton helping a paraplegic walk. I had, developed at UC Berkeley, and now that's evolved. I had seen gene therapies that were going to help the next cancer patient, but all the research is stuck in the university, and it doesn't necessarily translate out. So we have to make sure that the imagination of your children, of the current workers, of whoever's kind of influencing what's next, is fueled. They need to be able to see beyond what they see in movies. It actually does go back to the question about how do you hear about the good stuff. All of you have to start becoming the advocates in your communities about what the next workforce is. If you're not out there telling people and making it real, tangible, it's not going to connect. And that's actually the hardest part about economic and workforce development. I'm sure this is not where you wanted me to go, but after listening to Lieutenant Governor, it kind of inspired me to talk about something a little bit different. So I hope you guys are okay with that. How long do I have?
You got 5 more minutes.
Oh, I got 5 more. Oh, jeez. Okay. So look, with really the future of workforce when it comes to AI, it's going to start with leaders giving permission to their talent to actually lean into AI, use AI, explore with AI, make mistakes with AI. Protect your data, yes, but allow people to actually go in and explore, because that's where the next innovation is coming from. It's going to start with getting faculty in labs, learning how to actually accept and trust AI so that they can actually teach the students. The students are asking questions about what the jobs of the future are. Nobody really knows. And I said this last night, according to World Economic Forum, 53 million jobs are going to be lost, but 85 million are going to be created. We don't know what those jobs are. That's up to South Carolina to decide what those jobs are in South Carolina. That's up to Mississippi to decide what happens in Mississippi. That's up to France to decide what those jobs are in France. But the reality is if you don't create that future by fueling that imagination, keeping everybody curious, addressing the fear head on, because people come into this space, especially talking about AI and workforce, with fear, because they read all the headlines. Make space for those conversations and meet people where they are. And if it's an English teacher worried about students cheating, help them understand how now to teach a student English, and by using the tools, help them think critically, help them think creatively, help them think collaboratively, as opposed to running away and putting your head in the sand like AI is a good passing phase. We did that once with the internet. It took a little bit longer. AI kind of blew up, right? You guys, when you think about your workforce of the future and all the stuff that's coming, it's great that the energy is going to be coming in 6 to 7 years. Train your workforce in the next 2 years so that when the energy's here, they're ready for the jobs that come after that. And the reason I say 2 years is because everybody always asks me, is this, what does it look like in 10, 20 years? Zero idea. I just know that in the next 2 to 5 years, our chips are going to be speeding up innovation at such a speed that new stuff is going to be happening, and more people, that gap is going to grow, and people are going to fall in the middle of it. I'm not here to be fear-mongering. I'm just here speaking the truth. So I hope you guys are okay with that. when I walked in last night and met a bunch of folks, I felt like that I can actually be with family and be honest in this conversation and be able to tell you what I see, working for the preeminent quote-unquote AI company. Please understand, we don't build chips. We design chips that go incredibly fast. We fuel data centers, which is fueling economies. We fuel research, which is fueling innovation. And so now my job is to really help NVIDIA think about economic and workforce development. How do we not leave people behind? And that's at the core of everything that I do for my job now. And now it's time for us to go sit down, so I'll stop talking. That wasn't 5 minutes.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
It was an excellent pivot. I'm going to invite you to sit.
Yes, sir.
Sit over there. Louis and I had the opportunity. Is on that? Louis and I had the opportunity. Can y'all hear me? Can you hear me? We had the opportunity on last evening to have a conversation around a podcast that I do below the line.
Sure.
And some of the reference that he made really refers to the context of that conversation. So I think I'm going to start there.
Okay.
And I do like the fact that you pivoted based on the Lieutenant Governor's comment, because it allows me to pivot.
Fantastic.
Based on the comments that you made.
Okay, well, that's dangerous.
So let's step back a little bit and discuss some of your experience. You grew up in France,
Sir.
Italy before returning to the U.S., and you also played professional basketball in Peru and Belgium. So what I want to ask you about is, how did that experience? How did that experience? we had a lot of interesting moments that made him laugh and made him feel like it was a family. So he got a lot more comfortable that he probably came expecting to get.
That's true.
So I think we can get a lot of information out of him right now.
Wow.
Because he really feels like he's at home at a backyard barbecue. So in that moment,
You guys got good barbecue?
we have great barbecue.
I
in
gotta
South Carolina.
come back and do some barbecue.
You got to come back and do something. So talk about that. I want to start with that global experience. The upstate of South Carolina particularly has a significant number of global corporations here. And that influences a lot of the work that we do, how we train, the talent that we need. So talk about your global experience growing up and those things, how it influenced your framework for leadership and workforce, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. So, growing up abroad, playing abroad, growing up as really a translator for my parents, not only language, but culture, and trying to navigate the different rooms whenever my dad would move us to a different city or country because he was playing basketball. Understand, I moved to Europe when I was 3, so barely spoke English, grew up speaking French and Italian. Because my parents put me in French and Italian schools. They did not put me in English schools. I learned English on Hooked on Phonics, for those of you that know Hooked on Phonics, and listening to Motown. Anyway, and then you fast forward to my time in Peru and Belgium. Peru, I learned Spanish watching telenovelas and having radio and a dictionary. So I had to learn how to lead a team who did not speak English. But the common language that we had was actually soccer, because I actually grew up playing soccer first. So once they knew I knew how to play soccer, then they actually listened to me better on the court. So what all that does as a leader is you have to get comfortable in the discomfort. You have to get comfortable in being curious and listening to what folks are actually saying. Because even though the expectations were that I was this great American coming to play basketball in Peru, I had to actually learn that the what that expectation meant. That if I didn't meet their expectations, they could send me home and my career was all of a sudden over. So fast forward to working for the state, working for the city, and now working for NVIDIA, there's an expectation that I have to deliver. So, all these different places, I have to go into the room, read it fast. I have to go in the room and listen. I have to go in the room and figure out what is and what isn't, and turn things into action out of really thin air sometimes. But that starts with listening. That starts with being okay with being uncomfortable. And I'm just gonna say the uncomfortable piece, yes, I said I'm comfortable, and I'm in family, but I'm a super introvert. So, so this is actually not comfortable, but it's an important message. And so it's one of those things, I have to be comfortable talking to you about this, about economic and workforce development and the need to pivot, how thinking is happening.
So talk to us about some of the lessons learned. The group here comes from very diverse industries, higher education, K through 12, and in your work in the state of California and working with 2 governors, I believe, and our lieutenant governor who's running for governor, so she's possibly could be our next governor. What counsel or advice would you give us around innovation, workforce development, how to influence government as well as our governor around that?
So I'm not going to tell you anything about influencing a governor. But what I will say is any governor needs support, right? In order to build the ecosystems, in order to build the future. It doesn't matter the politics. Economic and workforce development doesn't have politics. You got to do good for your residents. So that's the angle that I've always come from in doing the jobs that I do. So yes, 2 governors, 1 Republican, 1 Democratic. Working in the city, Sacramento, that's the capital. But most people think of California as the last bastion of liberalism, but we're always 1 election away from being a red state. That's as much as I'm going to say about politics. So for economic and workforce development, you got to be able to navigate any room, anytime, and talk about how you're benefiting the people of your city, of your state, of your county, of your region. And that's always what it comes down to. You want to make sure that all your residents are able to contribute any kind of way. And so, what I heard the Lieutenant Governor talking about this morning, sounds like she's really interested in helping the residents of the state. Sounds like that from K-12, which I was talking to Mark and Mike about and some other folks, is an important focus area to make sure that your students are learning early so that when industry comes in, by the time they're ready, they can meet somewhere in the middle. But you can't forget the working professionals now that are reskilling and upskilling. So your tech colleges, your community colleges have to lean in hard to what they're hearing and seeing, and being out in the community, working with the nonprofits, kind of assuaging some of the fears that are out there, and in order to get people into the conversation so they don't get left behind.
Thank you. So let's pivot to talk about technology inclusion and impact. In your current role as head of the National Ecosystem Strategy for NVIDIA.
Don't read that. There's a lot
wrong?
of, I mean, I make it up every day.
So you make it up. So what are you today? What are you today? And your role today?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Let's talk about, which it speaks to how has your portfolio evolved?
Yeah.
And what are the top priorities that you're focused on today that we can really glean from?
Yeah, I knew that was the question, so that's why I said that. Anyway, so look, when I came into NVIDIA 5 years ago, they recruited me off of LinkedIn, random message. So some of you guys heard the story last night. Got a message that said, "Can we talk?" I sent them my calendar invite that said, "Set up some time on a calendar." They told me they needed 5 minutes. So I got on the phone for 5 minutes, and they invited me to come in and do my life's work at NVIDIA. What that meant at the time was come help HBCUs, the developers at HBCUs develop on our platform, create accelerated apps, start businesses. When you walk into HBCUs, just like you walk into rural communities, you walk into tribal communities, you walk into the Gullah community, they were starting from a deficit. So there's not just a base of developers sitting there waiting to use all your tools and resources that you have. So in my role, I had to pivot and really start at a foundation of AI and workforce Then we can talk about how does that scale into infrastructure. Then we can actually talk about scaling and talking about impact. So you go from go find developers in underrepresented communities to building an ecosystem strategy around impacting and influencing and inspiring the future of a workforce.
So give me an example of a partnership or education program that helped democratize access to AI or computing tools.
Sure. So, one of the, again, back to what the Lieutenant Governor said earlier about government using AI. So the example I'm going to give you is actually how we're targeting universities and public sector in that fashion. So in San Jose State came to us and wanted a partnership. Okay, they're 10 minutes away. It's an easy partnership to make. The city of San Jose, which is actually not where we're located, we're actually in Santa Clara, which is one street away. but they came to us and said they wanted to build a digital twin of their city for urban redevelopment. But then they told us that they didn't have any engineers to do it. Well, San Jose State graduates the most engineers in the Bay Area. So we're working with San Jose State. The city of San Jose is where we hold our conference every year in March. So we actually did partnerships with both of them so that we can actually train artists, architects, engineers, whoever at San Jose State to build the digital twin, which is a simulated world for the city of San Jose. So then they can actually graduate out, get hired by the city of San Jose, and continue to do their work. It's actually about to, San Jose State's about to start teaching those courses so they can actually build the virtual model of San Jose State's campus and then build the urban redevelopment stuff that the city of San Jose is talking about. So it's one of those things where, government has the opportunity to work with the university, work with Upstate, on specific projects that will actually add efficiencies to government, but also train a whole new set of people coming in.
And that's pretty interesting because the next question I have is, what role should universities and regional institutions like USC Upstate play in design and adoption of AI and advanced computing, not just as consumers, but also as creators?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, is universities are the co-creators of the ecosystem. Universities bring place, they bring thought, they bring a lot to the table. And so universities should be at the core of kind of what happens next. So all of my career in economic and workforce development has been built around the triple helix, is what it's called. Government, industry, academia. When those three things work together, innovation ecosystems thrive. When it's only one or two of them, I mean, yes, stuff happens, but it's not to the magnitude that it possibly could. So at universities, the faculty have to lean in. The students are coming in with new ideas, and this, again, goes into the K-12 stuff. So they have to be coming in knowing what the university's capacity is, what the capabilities are. The universities need to help foster and think about the creativity and the impact on a first-generation student that's coming in to university for the first time, even thinking more broadly around the impact that has on their family. So it really is an ecosystem thought process that you have to have, and a university can actually bring to an experience, to a region, to an economy.
So one of the things I think, I'm hoping as the audience is listening, that they be thinking about some really provocative questions, because one of the things that I think about the upstate of South Carolina and the skilling up of our workforce, of our citizenry here, to be key players and competitive in this space of AI. When I look at organizations developing digital twins and the engineers that we need and others that we need to be able to develop that, how important was partnering with San Jose State for the community there to build this space out and to build both the talent as well as the intellectual capacity there?
Yeah, so for San Jose State, it's largely demonstrative of the diversity of California, which is one of the reasons why it was easy to partner with the university, because of the impact that we could have with that partnership, right? So it's 85% minority serving institution, primarily Hispanic serving. And so if you look at San Jose's demographics, largely Hispanic. So if you think about first-gen students coming in, the population in and around San Jose, the impact that we can have is huge. Now, we're at the beginning of it, so we're not going to be able to see the true impacts of that until those first students start getting hired by the city. But even here, BMW and NVIDIA have done work together to build a digital twin of their factories, of their manufacturing plants, to make them more efficient, more sustainable, more. That takes artists. That takes, if you have all the folks and bits and pieces of the recipe, that's what it takes to actually build the future of your landscape. And so for us, it was important to give back to the community where our company is. But now we want to figure out how do we augment that impact and go out. Yeah.
So what do you see as some of the biggest impediments to education institutions responding, being nimble? We see this challenge, we're talking about this challenge,
Sure.
But oftentimes we don't see particularly public higher education being able to move as quickly as some of the others, and you alluded to earlier about the research that takes place, but it's not translated into the community. So what do you think some of the biggest impediments?
Yeah, I mean, look, man, when you came to NVIDIA, I think, you were one of the people that raised your hand and said that you were using AI. There was 80% of the room that had banned AI on their campuses. You got university presidents on our campus talking about they banned AI. And it was all mostly out of fear. So the biggest impediments right now is the fear, or the misconception that you need a $30 million supercomputer to actually compete. That's not a reality, right? So you have to actually baseline level set what the expectations are and understand what capabilities can be created with a system that costs $4,000 versus something that costs $30 million. Because then you have a different level of starting point for your community to be able to jump on and use models that are publicly available from either Meta, us, Microsoft. It doesn't really matter. Our stuff works with everybody, so that's why we're industry agnostic. So looking at your industries around here, lean into those industries, bring them to the table, find out what they need. Don't think that you need a supercomputer to compete, even though that's what you see in the headlines. Understand that there's infrastructure from AI workstations to these Spark systems that are literally the size of a small pizza box that you can actually create incredible models on, run incredible models on, and fuel the future of innovation in the state.
I have about a couple of questions. I want you to be thinking about the questions that you have. So in an environment, many of the people here are small business or mid-sized businesses. So in an environment where we have limited resources, both financial and resources of time, you've already spoken to not thinking that AI requires large computing systems, but there are a lot of access to hardware and software that can infuse that. How do you decide on, how should we think about deciding on when to say yes and when to say no to different new initiatives? People will walk away from here wanting to implement things into their corporations or their organizations. When should we say no or yes to those things?
Yeah, so I'm going to bounce back to the service-based leadership thing, right? So who is it serving and does it scale? It's really that simple. If it doesn't scale, if it's not going to have impact, then maybe you pause and reassess. But if you're out there trying to do good for your state, this is again going back to there is no politics in economic and workforce development. If you're trying to do good for your state, trying to compete globally, this is not competing against your neighbor. In the global AI economy, this is South Carolina competing against France, competing against. Sure, you can compete against North Carolina and Georgia if you want, but there's bigger people out there. If you look at just the global economy landscape, right? And so it's one of those things where if it scales, fantastic. If you're able to grow your ecosystem, awesome. How are you helping your people so that they can participate? Because if they can't participate, it doesn't scale. So those are the two things.
Thank you. So Barbara, I'm going to ask you to have some of our ambassadors come in. Are they here, Michelle? Yeah, okay. And I'm going to ask you to work with Chris to circulate the mics. These ambassadors are some of our top students that you see up there. I'm going to ask you all to stand so we can see you. Give them a round of applause. They've done a phenomenal job at leading us and bringing us here. So I want to get them a little more engaged and involved. So they're going to spread around in a few minutes, and you'll think about your questions. But while they're doing that and getting positioned, what I would like to ask this question. And what advice will you give to leaders who are trying to foster innovation and whose organization are risk adverse?
So government inherently is risk averse. So I learned this really early. If you penalize the innovators, you're going to stall innovation in what you're doing, right? So you actually have to give permission to innovate. You have to give permission to fail. I know for business leaders that's a hard thing to grasp, but if you don't fail, you actually don't grow. It's actually a chance to learn. So it actually is a chance to evolve your university, evolve your hospital, evolve your small, medium business. You have to actually try stuff. So you have to give the leaders in the room have to give your staff, have to give your employees, have to give your children permission to fail, and be okay with trying stuff and encouraging what's next. Help them think about where the things went wrong, but to collectively think about how to make it right, as opposed to punishing the innovator.
Yeah. Okay, our first question. Okay, well, that's fine. Introduce yourselves and ask the question. Come up closer so we can see you.
I met you yesterday.
Hi, I'm Nay Jai. I'm a student at the University of South Carolina Upstate. I'm a double major in cybersecurity and computer science. And I do want to first thank you for being here with us. And the question that I have is, how do you see AI changing the type of roles and skills companies will be looking for in the next few years? And as well as that, how is NVIDIA helping prepare the next generation of the AI workforce, and what can students at smaller institutions like the University of South Carolina Upstate do to get involved?
So two fantastic questions. The first part to your answer is, and it's an honest answer, I don't know how the jobs are changing. That's an unfortunate answer, but it's a truth answer. You know, I'm going to look at you and ask you, how are you using AI to transform cybersecurity and the fields that you're in? Because that's actually going to inform all the leaders in the room that actually are hiring folks like you to think about where their industry is going, because you are the creator of your future. I can't dictate and tell you where it's going. I'm a studio art major. I can make up some stuff, because I'm creative that way. But the reality is I don't know. But now NVIDIA, the way that we're jumping into this, we're telling people that we're a piece of the puzzle, right? All of our curriculum is intended for master's, PhD, postdoc, engineer type technology levels. We're working with a couple innovative companies, StudyFetch and CK12, to start breaking some of that learning down and getting us into K-12. We're working alongside state governments and universities to integrate our curriculum into existing AI curriculum, so that we can figure out if the university can create micro-credentials that actually then become stackable, so that folks can get employment because of the micro-credentials. So we're coming in not with the solution, we're just coming in to try to help plug some gaps and help augment the learning that's happening.
Thank you. Question?
Hello, welcome to South Carolina.
Thank you.
We've been basically converting what you would know as a Boys and Girls Club into a teacher incubator over the last 5 to 6 years. And we're in an ideal situation here in Spartanburg. We have first generation college goers, we have huge colleges. So we're looking at a pool of about 800 education majors. And we've had really good cooperation with the colleges and the deans to market the opportunity, but we're finding that we can't really even get 1% of those education majors to want to work in an apprenticeship for their future career. Have you seen anything in the country in your travels where they're actually getting the college students to go and do the work, the work-based learning?
So that's a very, and thank you for that question. It's actually a quite intriguing question because when I engage with college students, a lot of college students literally look at us with fear in their eyes because there is such an uncertain future. So the only thing that I've been able to see that to kind of address your question is really being able to sit down with a group of college students and actually breaking down how what they're learning equates to the opportunity that's being presented to them. So just talking to a college student about an apprenticeship may not compute because especially in the US, apprenticeships typically revolve around the trades. They're not talking about AI, they're not talking about tech, and that may change with the new funding for WIOA and some of the other stuff. But the reality is in the US, apprenticeships aren't seen as the vehicle to go get a job. So until government actually helps reframe that, makes it more attractive to tech companies to lean into that like they do in the UK and in Switzerland and some of the other places. It's going to be a hard conversation to get students to actually pay attention. So honestly, you have to meet the student kind of where they are and actually spend a little bit more time, unfortunately, which is not the thing that everybody has, to explain to them what this opportunity actually is, what it isn't, get industry in there talking to them the exact same way so that there's a little bit of hand-holding that happens to get them to understand why they need to jump into this opportunity because the door is open, even just for a quick second.
Yeah. Next question.
Hello.
Hey, good morning again. Glenn Davis, the Executive Director for the National Security and Government Institute. I spent about 37 years in the Air Force, and I'm really excited about using AI to help the artisans that build the systems of the future. My concern is when I was in the Air Force, when I checked out a tool, I had to make sure that it was current, that it was secure, that it was safe before I used it on an aircraft. And so when I hear we should trust AI, I typically think trust but verify. How do I know that the databases that we're using are secure and they're not being tampered with? Thank you.
One, employers should be looking at the young lady right behind you, especially because of her major in cybersecurity, because AI has to be secure in nature. Two, you have to have actually people in the loop. There's not so much the ability to just blindly trust AI. We're not at that stage. You have to look at who's training the models in order to understand if you can actually trust what you're using. But honestly, Lieutenant Governor talked about it, you have the young lady behind you. Cybersecurity is at the core. If you're not training up a bunch of folks to actually protect your infrastructure, you're missing the boat. They have to protect the models. They have to protect all the other stuff. Even when it comes to autonomous cars, you need cybersecurity professionals. So you know everything now, because of technology, is vulnerable to some kind of attack. So you're right to ask the question, how do you trust? Well, you do have to verify. You know, and all the systems will tell you that if you create your own, that it's not feeding into the broader system. I don't trust that. Even though we have a corporate version of the different AI tools, right? We still are told don't put in proprietary information, even though it's our own proprietary system built on these other platforms. So there's only so much trust that you can actually just, more of it is not trust, but try. If you're not in the room, in the conversation, using it, then yeah, you're gonna miss out on a whole lot, right? But the trust and verify is a real thing. I think that's a life lesson for most folks these days.
I'm Keisha Williams. I'm from USC Upstate. You mentioned AI's potential for advancing critical thinking. What are some of the things that you've seen in the marketplace that have been particularly intriguing to you?
Oh, interesting. So, look, AI period has the ability to advance critical thinking, creativity, team building, a bunch of stuff. The way that, so I don't use a bunch of tools because there's way too many out there right now. But what I have done is build my own ChatGPT. I built my own Gemini. I built my own Copilot, and use those to actually talk to each other and argue with each other and challenge the way that I think. So for me, it actually enhances my critical thinking because it's challenging the way that I think at every single point so that I don't get in this constant feedback loop that everything is right. I'm not looking for an immediate answer for something because I'm getting my ChatGPT automatically pushes back if I go in with a presupposed answer. So I encourage folks to actually on the critical thinking piece, start really thinking about not just asking simple questions. Actually, start trying to figure out the world, so you understand how AI is thinking about it. And right now, it's not really thinking. I need you guys to understand that. Right now, it's putting together words and predicting what it thinks the next word should be, right? So back to the lieutenant governor talking about a kindergartner needs to know 150,000 words. Okay, well, what AI knows global knowledge right now, but it doesn't know how to really put that stuff together, and it's all based on you and your ability to think critically about what you're asking it to do. And that's kind of how you have to break it down to folks. And so for me, there's not a single tool that's going to enhance critical thinking that I know of, again, because I'm not subscribing to everything that's out there. I just know that how I use it is to enhance how I think about ecosystems, economies, and innovation in the future.
One of the things that we deal with in higher education particularly is trying to make sure that we have curriculum that's relevant to the workforce. Mm-hmm. What will the workforce need next year, a couple years from that? In higher education all across the country and the globe, there's been a big debate around the humanities and the role that it plays and whether or not there's a value, should people get a degree in the humanities, et cetera. So aligning your perspective around critical thinking, AI, the technology, how do those things come together? How do they merge? And that.
Yeah, it's kind of a skill set a little bit, at least that's what I've been told, because there's right brain, left brain thinkers, that's fine. The reality is if you're able to bring your life experience to the table, if you're a humanities major, if you're an engineering major, if you're a philosophy major, whatever, you got to be able to not solely think in that line of thinking. And so, the cool thing about what I'm able to do is bring my technology background, bring my studio art background as a creator, bring my policy experience to the table and really think about stuff holistically. And that really is kind of what feeds into the ecosystem building, is not just thinking on the linear thought or not thinking too much in the abstract. The abstract is what allows me to start from yes and get to know, but getting to know is the technologist in me that knows that there has to be a solution to the problem. And so, yeah, it's a continuum of thinking that has to happen.
Next question. Up here. Javaris? Oh.
Hi, Mark Holden in manufacturing. I was curious about, have you seen communities that are excelling in AI education, either here or abroad?
Yeah,
and
so
the second question is, what are some no-regret strategies to get started in AI?
No-regret strategies?
No-regret strategies for AI education.
Oh, we have to come back to that one. But the first part of the question, at NVIDIA, we have our eyes on what's happening in Gwinnett County and the 83,000 students that they're serving, opened up 2 AI high schools, started AI training in kindergarten about 2-3 years ago. So we're looking at their AI strategy and what they've developed. We're looking at some of the private schools over in Hawaii and the AI consortiums that they're building through MidPac out there. We're looking at Fairfax, Virginia. So we're looking at the different pockets that are popping up. We're looking at states like South Carolina, North Carolina, and others that are looking hard at CS. Even though you don't necessarily need computer science for a lot of this stuff, you need to know how to put together a sentence. But the reality is if you're looking to advance your economy in a different way, you need the technology thinkers as well. So the communities that are truly leaning in and incorporating it and learning how to incorporate it themselves at a foundational level, it's fantastic. And then you look at like even University of Florida. You guys may have heard NVIDIA gave them a supercomputer. That's not exactly what happened. An alum of University of Florida donated a computer.
Who is the
co-founder of NVIDIA. So NVIDIA didn't, anyway.
He's just trying to prepare me for not asking.
I'm just saying.
NVIDIA to give us a computer. Because we don't have an alumnus yet.
I'm just saying, well, soon maybe. So like University of Florida, they've been on a 5-year journey figuring out how to democratize AI and how to teach it across the university. So it's an interesting use case looking at what they're doing from the humanities to engineering to the sciences to whatever. But then as part of the democratization, they've made all their curriculum available to all SEC colleges and for free. So everybody can come, take the curriculum back to their SEC respected campuses and teach what University of Florida has built over these last 4 years. So we're watching kind of all this different stuff. And again, going back to the piece of the puzzle, just trying to figure out, how can we add some fuel to what's happening. So, and the no regret stuff, look, man, I think at the core, I said it, it's time for everybody to jump in. That's really the no regret strategy. The regret strategy is not jumping in because then you get left behind. Your economy gets left behind.
And actually, last year we had someone from the University of Florida, one of their key leaders in education, to come and be one of our major presenters, and she did an exceptional job. Do we have a question over there? And then we'll come back to you.
Hi, Julie Jones again, from Johnson Development. Back before I was with Johnson Development and with another local company here in Spartanburg, I was in talent acquisition. And this was, in my eyes, not too long ago, but a minute ago, where before it was called AI, we were recruiting for machine learning, you recall. And we could not find the talent that we needed here locally or even going beyond the state, and did a lot of sponsoring to get that talent we needed at that time. Now, I'm not currently in that role with this company, but have we improved on that? And I just heard you, share that currently AI is a bunch of words, right? They're predicting, it's not. So as businesses need specific things, am I hearing it's kind of our responsibility as a business to talk with our educators, our universities, to collaborate with them on, all right, this is the needs, and so they're able to build curriculums for the students so that when they exit, they do have that capacity to fill the roles that are needed, the more complex things, I guess, is my question. And not being in there now, like I said, that's why I'm asking, and this may be the case already, but.
Yeah, so yes, industry has to be sitting at the table next to universities, next to government, having those actually really hard, complicated conversations. Machine learning is an element, deep learning is an element, model parallelism is an element of AI and what makes it. The only reason I know what model parallelism is, can't say it, but is because of this partner that we're using for our K-12 strategy, StudyFetch. If I throw our model parallelism curriculum into StudyFetch, it actually breaks down what it is. It actually gives me the definitions. It helps me figure out what all that stuff is. If I actually just take the course that we have, I would have failed it because I didn't even understand what it was trying to tell me. But we need to figure out how to break down some of the, and educate people on what the words actually mean. What is machine learning? What is deep learning? What is all this stuff? And that actually has to start at an earlier age so that when a talent agency is going out to recruit, folks have actually heard the terms and potentially have made some progress if they decided to go that route to participate in that part of the economy. But that's a global problem, which is why the recruiting race is so tough, and talent is going to where the jobs are. It's going to be hard to recruit if your industry folks aren't here helping train folks in machine learning and deep learning in order to propel them, because then you're recruiting against other states and other countries where they're fueling that.
And I do think that the relevance for higher education is that if you look at a district like Gwinnett County, which is 85,000 students, the largest district in Georgia, and their students are learning now this language, they're learning this culture, they're learning technology. We can't be a higher education institution that's not prepared for that,
Right.
because then we become irrelevant. It's my first time hearing it, no regret. We're going to have a lot of regrets if K through 12 is doing this intense work, and there seems to be a great propensity to going to K through 12 to start this work. And so I think higher education, technical college, et cetera, we're going to have to catch up really quickly if the people that we expect to come to us are smarter than we are in this space. There's a question here.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Harris and Louis. Julian Williams, USC System. Louis, you talked a little earlier about higher education sort of resistance, at least a few years ago, or a couple year years ago.
It still persists.
The reason I wanted to ask my question is at the University of South Carolina, as well as at the flagship, but also at USC Upstate, we partnered with OpenAI to offer chatgpt.edu for all of our faculty, staff, and students just earlier this year. And the hope there is on the staff side is driving innovation in terms of efficiencies, in terms of how we do our work, and the faculty and student side is in terms of just really opening up doors in the classroom. But we also heard from Lieutenant Governor Yvette, who talked about sometimes the lack of soft skills, right? And we hear from our employers that are thankful that we're sending out highly educated and technically skilled students, but wanting students to be able to work more closely in teams, to really think about innovation, to have sort of those cross-cultural skills as well. So I'm curious as to how you think AI might be able to assist in some of that soft skill development if there's more broader adoption in higher education.
Sure. So first, I'm just going to say congratulations on making ChatGPT available to everybody. That's a fantastic start. But what I need everybody in the room to hear is AI is more than the chatbot, right? It's more than ChatGPT. And so to get to the soft skill piece, everybody has ChatGPT.edu now. Have the faculty start actually setting up programming and curriculum around forcing the students to collaborate, right? That's how the soft skills start happening. The projects need to be project-based around collaboration, around creativity. Let them use the tool because that's what you have it for. But if the educators don't start actually building that in versus just using it for their own separate purposes, even if it's just developing curriculum, that's fine. But how now does it start to become one thing that actually pushes the institutions forward? How do you start integrating, some of the other platforms, some of the other language models, some of the other stuff out there as part of this education process? ChatGPT is fantastic. Like I said, I use it every day, personally and for professional reasons. But there's so much more out there that you have to actually wrap around. ChatGPT is the entry point.
Let me ask for a raise of hand of those of you who feel this whole AI, ChatGPT, all of that is pretty daunting, and ask yourself, where do I start to become confident? Can you raise your hand? Am I the only one? Let's raise our hand a little higher. Okay. So where do we start?
Yeah. So look, my wife hated it when I first started using ChatGPT, but I was curious because our boss, Jensen, told us that we didn't have to worry about our jobs, but we had to worry about people knowing AI taking our jobs. And so I needed to figure out how to use AI tools. I've said it a couple times, but if you hesitate right now, you lose. So you have to actually jump in. I know that sounds harsh, but I'm also a basketball player, so it's one of those things you got to compete. And so, jump into ChatGPT if you have access to it. Start with the free version, start figuring out how to actually ask it questions. I was telling Chris this last night, I've actually have 2 prompt engineering certifications that I went and got on my own outside of work so that I could learn how the systems actually work, but then how to ask it questions so that I get the results that I want. So a lot of this right now is actually investing the time in yourself to learn the tools, to learn the methodologies, to learn the language of, and it's all based right now in English. So, if you remove that part of the barrier, now it's going in and learning how to ask the questions and understanding at the baseline how the systems work. I'm not asking you to go build something, but I am asking you to go in and try it out and understand the complexities of GPT-5 and what it's able to do, what it's not able to do. But yeah, not jumping in right now is the regret strategy.
So we have time for one more question. Here. Well, 2 more questions. We'll start here and then we'll go there.
Bonjour again.
Bonjour.
We share the same languages. I had the privilege of meeting you last night. And my question is related to the language of IT. Do you, with your global travels, your multilingualism, do you feel that if we train AI in Arabic better, or in Hebrew, or in Russian, do you see that it is going to have an impact in how we use AI here or around the world? And this is related to one kind of concern that I have. We have a thriving multilingualism in the United States, yet our universities or institutions don't reflect that multilingualism. So how are we supposed to build the workforce that we need when we don't have enough people like you, translators? Thank you, merci.
So, fantastic question. And look, when you train the models in other languages, it enables those communities to participate, right? So if you train it in Arabic, Arab nations are able to thrive. Arab-speaking nations are able to thrive. If you train it in Japanese, Japanese-speaking areas are able to thrive. The miss is to think that everybody's only working in English. And if you don't embrace that in the US, to your point, the multilingual nature of the US, in California alone, there's 223 languages and dialects. So the reason I found that out is because I worked for the census for a quick second. Way weird background. Anyway, but if you're trying to get people to sign up for the census and it's not in their language, it's not culturally appropriate, you're not going to get people to do the census. It's going to be the same thing in participation in AI. If you want to be able to compete, everybody's voice needs to be at the table. That's how you reduce bias. That's how you make inclusion happen. That's how you thrive. So there is a miss strategically to innovation ecosystem by not factoring all that stuff in. And understand, yes, the focus is on China and Russia and some of this other stuff, but other countries are entering this race, this AI race, because it is a global AI economy, right? So they're building their own models in their own languages based off of what's built here, right? Because they see what's happening here. So lack of adoption in the US is a strategic risk.
Question was, oh, yes.
So I have 2 things. One was just a success story using ChatGPT. It was actually my husband. He had lost some work not too long ago. He's his own small business owner here in Spartanburg, and he actually used it to build his own flyer And AI helped him so much that he is booked till the end of the month and to the end of December. So that was a success story, just using that, just so you know. The other is I'm Carrie Wetzel with Tyndall Corporation, and we're a precast concrete company here in Spartanburg. And I'm one of the recruiting managers for HR. And I've actually started using AI recruiting through like some of our platforms. The thing that I have noticed and seen, though, is it's still important to have that person behind the scenes to answer some of those questions for the candidates that are coming through your SMS systems. So just wondering, how are we still going to be able to use that person behind the scenes along with the AI? Is it still going to be something that we hope to still use in the future?
Yeah, so I said it earlier, and it's important for folks to hear. Humans have to stay in the loop. We're not at a place where AI can just take over and do stuff. Yeah, it can do repetitive tasks, but okay, that's fantastic. But if you don't have the human, if you don't have the human kind of behind the scenes, making sure that it's still doing what it's supposed to do, that's why at the bottom of every chat window, Gemini, ChatGPT, Copilot, all of them tell you that it makes mistakes. Anybody that's just pushing stuff out based off of the output that it got from the GPT, you're risking what happened at City Council in Sacramento, where 3 city council members ended their speech the exact same way because their staff, you could tell, just put a prompt into ChatGPT, and they did this on TV. So all of a sudden, all 3 people say the exact same thing at the end. You're like, well, damn, okay, you guys didn't use that right. So that means their staff, their humans, did not do their job as staffers to make sure that their electeds didn't look ridiculous on TV, right? So as a HR professional, like for me, when I'm hiring a team member, I told you guys, I built my own GPT, and I actually have one of the agents act as an HR professional, not to replace anybody, but to help me actually try to move candidates through a system while I avoid challenges that I've had with other employees. So I've built into the system all the challenges I've had with other employees, and I make my ChatGPT develop questions based on the role that actually filters that without overtly saying, yeah, you're a problem, but the answers kind of reveal themselves, right? And so I give all those questions to the panelists that are going to be interviewing, because I need the humans to still be the feedback loop that I need to make sure that I'm not missing something and that my AI agent isn't missing something.
Louis, as we close, I wanted for this audience to be able to hear a conversation you had with us last night. So you talked about the alignment of K through 12, higher education, the business community, and state government, and how that's necessary to make ourselves attractive for partnership and investments from companies like NVIDIA. Can you talk to us about the examples you shared in Mississippi and Utah and things we could be doing here in the state of South Carolina to make ourselves attractive to your organization as well?
Absolutely. And I also told Chris that with NVIDIA, it's not your traditional economic development motion, right? When states that, the initials are NJ, but I won't say the state, call us. And the first question is, how do we get you guys to build a building and hire 500 of our people? That's not the conversation you want to have with us, right? You do want to have the conversation with us, how can NVIDIA come into my state and help augment my economy? That is a conversation that we can get engaged in. So the example that Chris is talking about in California, started at the governor's office. We told the governor, hey, we want to help California. What that means is we want to help the economy, we want to help the workforce, we want to help the innovation ecosystem. We want to help fight the headlines about businesses leaving the state and talent leaving the state and whatever else. Why California? Because our company's in California. Okay, so it's easy to do that for us because I used to work for the state, my colleague, 30 years with the state, so an easy entry point. Governor's office was not able to bring the University of California system to the table, was not able to bring the California state colleges to the table. We got the community colleges. Not a problem since there's 116 of them. The problem became when the community college chancellor's office only told 7 of the community colleges. So then The example that Chris is talking about, Mississippi, we walk into Mississippi, we tell California, hey, we're about to go do the same thing in Mississippi. And they laughed. Like, okay. So we walk into Mississippi. Mississippi's 5 years, now 6 years into their AI journey with the Mississippi AI Network. The legislature down to kindergarten is all aligned. And we walk into the state, and they have a system where they're all talking, they're all trying to figure out what's next for Mississippi. They're moving up on the education rankings, they're looking at how to bring data centers in along the Mississippi River and figuring out how not to mess up the ecosystem. They're trying to figure all this stuff out so they become an attractive state, not only for businesses to come and thrive, but for their talent to stick and stay. Utah. The Utah legislature they started with compute first. And the governor brought all the universities to the table. Brigham Young dropped out because Brigham Young's Brigham Young. And, but the MOU that we have with them started with the impetus of we're gonna build compute in Utah, but all of our universities are gonna be looking at NVIDIA's curriculum, how to incorporate it, how to actually build the gap or bridge the gap in Utah to community colleges. So when we can actually walk into a state and have a conversation with everybody at once and understand that they're connected back out to industry, then it's easy for us to figure out how we help. It's not helpful to walk into a state and it's fractured and it's contentious. And that's not good for anybody's business outlooks. That's not good for anybody's economic development outlook. So any company that's coming into South Carolina needs to hear all of y'all singing the same song. and talking and walking the same way, and showing the connectivity from upstate to the governor, to the kindergarten, to the nonprofits, to whatever. Everybody needs to be walking around saying the same thing. And that's super attractive to a state, for short term, and short term help, but even long term potential. You have to have that infrastructure and you guys are part of that infrastructure to show a company how to scale in your state.
Let's give Lewis a round of applause for his comments and questions.